So here's a deer blind looking over a food plot a mile back into the woods. This parcel is 130 acres. Every neighboring parcel around it is at least 30 acres. And if we go that way, I would say as the crow flies, we could go 4 to 6 miles before we pass a single road. The neighboring adjoining parcel is 3,500, 4,200 acres, single parcel. So there is an interstate right yonder that way, but there's wilderness, like naked and afraid. How do I get out of here? If you were to get dropped in the middle, I would hate for it to happen in summertime, just because of how thick and infested with ticks and all these things, the snakes, the rattlesnakes, copperheads, etc. But anyway, this is a client / friend of mine. He bought this parcel from a guy who bought all the land, quite a bit more. This is a sliver of, not a sliver, a good chunk, maybe a third of the guy's total holdings. But the guy was he cashed out of whatever he did and he bought land out here. He was a transplant. And he wanted to set up like a little deer heaven. So he had a dozer, he made roads. Like I said, we're pretty close to probably a mile away from the house. And this guy took the dozer, probably with a straight blade, probably not a root rake. And he did do a good job of not making 100% clear. You know, some people would have cut all those trees right there, those little white oaks. Some people would have cut them thinking, oh, I need to get full sun. That's not really great. Silvopasture is when you've got a mixture of trees and pasture, and, you know, trees and clearings. And that's great. There's nothing wrong with that. The guy, he did a pretty good job. He made clearings where he got enough light in, but not too much. There's a lot of structure out here. I mean, there's deer up the wazoo. The question is getting them drawn into this point. The issue that this place had was that he dozed off all the topsoil. You know, he made a nice little meadow, but he lost all his topsoil. So he planted and planted and planted, and he fertilized and all the things, and he really never got anything to grow here. He had bare soil. I mean, just bare soil. Now, I came out, which we can come and take a little walk. We've still got some bare clay right here. And over in there, some bare. When I came out here and looked at it, I said, Marty, that's my buddy's name, client's name. I said, Marty, you're not going to be able to grow anything in this until it's covered. Like, he was talking about getting rid of the weeds. And I was saying, well, if you get rid of the weeds, what do you have? Bare soil. Bare soil bakes to death, literally death. The biology in that soil cannot endure raw sunshine. It dries out, it loses its moisture, and it just petrifies. It turns to crust, which is what this is. It's rock hard. The only thing suited to grow in this is the weeds. If you kill the weeds, there's nothing else. So I had said, bring out wood chips. But and that would work phenomenally. You know, it really would. Or rent a chipper, chip some of this brush, but cover the soil. That was my remedial prescription. I said, cover the soil. And, you know, the original plan was to get contractor loads of free wood chips dropped off and get them out here. But the reality is that a side-by-side with a little itty-bitty dump bed, even if they rigged a trailer up, the road's just a little too rough. And there's really no way they were going to get a sufficient quantity of chips out here. They do have a skid steer, but they never did manage. They have a skid steer, and they were willing to rent a mulcher, but the mulcher would be leaving the mulch out in the clearings. It wouldn't put it over here. So, you know, they could have probably rented like a bandit chipper, and we could have just felled some of this junk. And maybe we will. Maybe we will. You know, there's some thinning in front of that. There's a lot of stuff that should be thinned out here because it's been high graded. So a lot of the timber that's growing is really poor quality and also a lot of really shade tolerant. So in time, it would make a lot of sense to rent a Vermeer or whatever, a roller feed chipper with a blower chute, and just park it stationary and use the skid steer to feed the clearings into this. You know, we could just cull the mid-story and the understory, feed that in, and just spray wood chips. Maybe we'll do that. But maybe we won't have to, because this is planting. I want to say it's June. I don't know. I'm really not sure. I don't care. I don't have to know what day it is. I know what time the sun sets, basically. So there's a lot of rye in here. This was a food plot. We went to the co-op to get seed together. You know, he said, hey, I want to go get seed. Can you ride with us and just walk up to the counter and just, you know, negotiate, tell me what to get, you know? So, well, we got to see what they got. So I rode with him, and we're haggling it out, figuring out what do they have to offer, what does it cost. And there was a seed vendor for one of the deer food plot companies. I can't remember the name of it, but a really popular one. And he gave us a bunch of food plot mixes, food plot seed. He gave us a bunch of it. He just stuck it in his truck and left his card, which was amazing. It was awesome. The point of the story is, here we are. This all got frost seeded, and this was bare ground. What we're looking at now is clover, crimson clover. We've got a rye, whether that's a perennial, annual, I don't know. We've got winter wheat. And not the thickest stand, but now there's a biomass mulch layer that's here. And it's starting to actually look pretty good. So what Marty just did was come out with the quad with the seed spreader, and today we have done a warm season mix. I would say mainly of sorghum sudan, soybean, red ripper cowpea. I threw in some daikon radish that I had to help drill in for the compaction, and oilseed sunflower. I think that was it. Maybe there was a sixth thing. Oh, and buckwheat, which is excellent. The buckwheat's going to shoot up first. So what we had him do was come out with the quad, him and his two kids. So everybody was riding on something. I brought my tractor and my disc, and I did get my tire changed. I had shredded a tire earlier, so I spent, oh man, the whole day yanking on that steering wheel, holding to the left, because it was just pulling all over the place. With the tire flopped around and disintegrated. But what we did was we put the seed spreader in a receiver hitch on the front of the side-by-side, and they seeded just into whatever is here for native vegetation. So they launched the seed right into this, which is what I'm out here for now. I got 2 more plots to do. They had to go for some dinner plans they had, but, you know, this is my job. I like doing this. I love being out in the solitude. So this has been seeded, and I'm now going to disc. The disking is going to do 2 things. It's going to terminate this, what we're going to call the cover crop, this existing crop, which is just a hodgepodge of biomass. It's going to be mostly terminated, not all of it. Some of it's just going to be laid down and crushed. But that's going to stimulate each one of these things to immediately harden off a seed. It's going to use all of its root reserves. It's going to completely stop the vegetative stage, and it's going to put 110% last-ditch effort into reproduction, making a viable seed. That's what it's going to do, which is great, because that's the reestablishment. You know, free seed that has been grown on your ground is premium. That's the best seed, okay? Because, you know, you got adaptation to your conditions is just going to improve with subsequent generations. So this is going to harden off its own seed. It's going to add seed to the seed bed for the following cool season. And this biomass is going to create a sunblock. It's going to create a green protective coating, a mulch, over the seed that we're putting in. And the disc is, of course, also going to disturb the soil. So we're going to get sufficient soil disturbance. We're going to cut it up. And it doesn't take much. You don't have to till. Like this spot where the tire came through and just broke up the top, just scrambled that dirt a little bit. That's sufficient to get a seed to get seed to soil contact. You can't get seed to soil contact in this clay. This is crusted, okay? These I don't remember, those are soybeans right there. That's a soybean. That's a red ripper cowpea. That's big seed, and it will not just go in. And there's a sunflower seed right there, okay? So just scattering seed, you're not going to get nothing. Now, they frost seeded this in the winter. So all they did was what they just did today, but they did it back in the winter. And the frost, the heaving and cracking and shrinking and contracting, like just it works the seed into the ground. These little ones here, the small red ones are easy to get in, but them big boys, it takes some loosening of that top layer. So we're going to get that seed to soil contact by disking, and the disc is going to throw, some dirt it's going to sling dirt around, and it's going to be too much dirt on top of some seeds. It's going to be too little dirt on top of others. It's going to stagger emergence, okay? The American farmer is obsessed with uniformity. Nature doesn't do anything uniform. Why? Because one seed that's buried too shallow is going to come up soon, and maybe you'll have a frost. Maybe you'll have a drought. And that seed that emerged early catches that weather condition that kills it. But the seed that was buried too deep has delayed germination. It's a delayed emergence, okay? And that maybe that weather event has passed. Or maybe that seed doesn't come up this year at all. And maybe 3 years from now, frost heaving, or a tree turns up, or a hailstorm, maybe severe torrential downpours. Now that seed is revealed. Its day has come. Every dog gets its day, or whatever you want to say about it. It's a funny bird. So nature always has variability. Man hates variability. Man builds a machine and adjusts it so it's completely identical, uniform. Monocrop, you lose your whole crop in one shot. Does nature ever do that? Never. Never. It plants everything. So no matter what the conditions, something will cover that soil. Something will fix atmospheric nitrogen and hydrogen and oxygen. Get these things into the soil. Something is always feeding carbon into the soil so that the soil microbiota, the soil biology, the bacteria and the fungi, are fed. They're never starved. It's man who makes deserts. And we can see here that the disc is going to make some clods. It's going to cut some furrows kind of deep, and it's going to sling a lot of cloudiness up here. But then in here, it barely scratches the surface down in the center. And then on right there, it's a lot of clods. And that's just because of the orientation of the cutters. One's throwing there, one's throwing there. And this one is supposed to be kind of pulling that back in and averaging it out. And it's good, but it could be better. So they've got a drag harrow on a quad. So after I disc this, maybe after dinner or whatever, they've got company from another country, so they had to go and spend time. That's the right thing to do, which I'm thrilled because it gives me a chance to stop and make this video. But so they're going to come out after dinner because we've got a major rain coming tonight. We need to get this all done, or the window for the season is not good because we're kind of on the late end for what we're planting right now. They're going to come out with that drag harrow and smooth this around, and then they're just going to use the quad and the side-by-side, and they're just going to rodeo back and forth all over so that the tires give a compacting action, like a cultipacker. And that's going to help pack all this seed, and, we'll be in good shape. Now, sorghum Sudan crop should grow 5 to 6 feet high, and come fall, if we're tilling down a sorghum crop, if we're seeding into sorghum, running it over, seeding it, disking it, oh man, we're going to have topsoil. We're going to have it fast because that sorghum is a lot of biomass. And I am just, that saying, if you love what you do, you never work another day in your life. I just got paid. I'm watching the setting sun on a private vista. I'm on a mountain bluff. If I walk up there, I'll see 1,000-foot drop. I'm running my 50-year-old tractor that don't owe me a penny. They filled it with diesel fuel. I got enough money in my pocket. I don't have to worry for another week. Mostly because I'm efficient with money, not because I charged them $1,000. They said, what do I owe you? I said, what do you want to pay? So I don't care what you pay me. What do you like to pay me? He's a generous man. He's a good Christian. So what he paid me is more than enough. I said, Marty, that's too much. He said, no, I want you to take it. All right, buddy. If it helps you sleep, it'll help me sleep. We can both sleep good tonight. Now, how could I not be a person with a peaceful life, living a life like this? I'm not on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, listening to people bicker back and forth about their politics bullshit. I'm interacting with nature. I'm obeying the Lord and stewarding the land. God says in Genesis, be fruitful and multiply. Ooh, I gotta watch out for that piece of wire. He says, be fruitful and multiply. You know how much multiplication there is in 100 pounds of seed? That's a lot of multiplication, guys. And I'm at peace. I just have such joy in doing this. And I don't get to do it often enough. But he just said, Mike, I'm not buying a tractor. So he said, it'll save me a fortune to pay you well. I want you to come and do this 2 times a year. I said, Marty, if you want to pay me like that, I'll do it 8 times a year. Man, what a good day. Praise the Lord.